Hi, let's inspect this HEXBLAST Trickster. HEXBLAST is a spell that deals chaos damage. If the enemy is hexed, cursed with a hex, it deals more of it and damages all enemies around the target, but removes the hex as it does. The plan is to always hit a hexed enemy. Mines are auto-targeting your enemies, and that's a big advantage. They will hit the same enemy that your skitterbots are seeking, which is the nearest one. That's a big upside because you're wearing the profane proxy that causes one of your skitterbots to radiate with a hex aura. Even as HEXBLAST removes curse on hit, the skitterbot will reapply it almost instantly. You're also spotting a second curse that is applied on hit, so even the hex-removing HEXBLAST applies another hex. This spell has another property: it seeks the lowest resistance of an enemy and treats it as the resistance for its chaos damage. It's easier to penetrate elemental resistance than chaos. The only severe downside of HEXBLAST seems to be its low base crit chance and long cast time. It's fixed with Sandstorm Visage and a good wand with mines instead of self-casting. That leaves you only with a problem of survivability. A lot of players tend to pay no mind to it, but it's not that bad. On top of fire exposure, elemental weakness, and flammability, you can link one of your skills to combustion to lower fire resistance big time. You're also allowed to benefit from Unnerve, with a debuff and shock, which HEXBLAST will inflict. It's also a critical strike build with high crit multiplier. Cap your spell suppression at 100%. With Spellbreaker and Inveterate, you prevent 63% of spell damage. To protect yourself from attacks, just get evasion. Here we have used Grace with rare evasion-based gear pieces. It's hard to blind with spells, but don't ignore it. It's a big boost to your survivability. Clear speed is good because your damage and throwing speed is good too. As advertised, it's a boss killer with high damage. For pinnacle bosses, we recommend a mana flask. It's a well-known starter, so it can be assembled cheaply. Just be mindful that Profane, Proxy, and Sandstorm Visage can be relatively expensive early on. Sandstorm Visage and Profane Proxy are mandatory. The remaining uniques are recommended, but not necessary. As for the jewels, having the proper balance of terror is a bright idea, otherwise you will rely entirely on Withering Step to Wither. Alternatively, readjust skill setups to include Wither totems. HEXBLAST has a base crit chance of 4%, and with Sandstorm Visage Helmet and a good wand, it's more than thrice as high. That's why it is so good. Restless Ward increases movement speed by 28% and regenerates 225 life per second. It has some maximum life and increases charge duration by up to 200%. This way your charges will last almost a minute. If you have a specific Archdemon crown with built-in hypothermia and such to host your HEXBLAST, you may equip Kaom's Heart for 1000 maximum life, since in such case you won't need sockets on a body armor. Replica Dragonfang's Flight lacks maximum life, crit multiplier, and reduction to mana cost, but grants more damage compared to a rare amulet, so it can be good too. Socket one of your curses in Profane Proxy. The Hex Aura will cause your first hit with HEXBLAST to be already upgraded, and it will be almost instantly reapplied once it's removed. Be sure your curse limit is higher than 1. The balance of terror with Withered on hit is very powerful. You have to apply Withered one way or another, and this option is the best of them all. Watcher's Eye, you're using Zealotry and Grace. Spell Suppression or Blind Chance from Grace and Elemental Penetration from Zealotry are the best options. Penetration works with HEXBLAST's ability to only account for the lowest resistance. It's mostly a life build, but even with no thought put into it, you will reach over 2000 energy shield. Your primary defensive layers are Spell Suppression and Evasion. Reaching 100% Spell Suppression chance is hard, but possible. A good wand will require you to seek extra intelligence, but strength and dexterity will be needed too if you want to use red skill gems and wear high-end evasion-based rare gloves and boots. You should get some mana reservation on jewels and such if you want to place a lot of mines at once. On top of that, you need to reduce their mana cost. Mana regeneration is quite important too if you don't want to use Mana Flask. If you need more damage, prioritize Critical Strike Multiplier. HEXBLAST can be socketed in Archdemon Crown if you have a very specific helmet with Shaper's influence and mods that enhance local setup. Despite making it a 5-link, 30% more damage and 3 levels to HEXBLAST will keep the damage high. It's an expensive option and alters the rest of the skill and item setups. If you're using a rare armor, it means you want resistances, suppression, and a lot of defenses like evasion or energy shield, boosted by the Escape Artist passive. Unique armor is often better than this, for the Eldritch mods get increased effective auras and zealotry specifically. Prophecy Wand is the best weapon on account of its high base crit chance. Increase it further with local crit chance, not spell crit chance, as a suffix, and add to that critical strike multiplier. Spell damage, levels to HEXBLAST, and mana regeneration will be useful. You can either use a shield with evasion where you can naturally find spell suppression chance, or a pure ES shield with modifiers to level of chaos skill gems and spell damage. We recommend the latter, although it makes capping spell suppression chance harder. On the gloves, you can find dexterity, resistances, maximum life, and spell suppression. A bit of mana regeneration with maximum life can be crafted, but a high tier maximum life is better, for the Eldritch mods get fire exposure and chance to unnerve. On boots, you will need spell suppression, maximum life, resistance, and movement speed. The Eldritch mods should get you some action speed and either cooldown recovery rate for Enduring Cry, chance to avoid an ailment, or increased life regeneration rate. On a belt, you may find a lot of maximum life, resistances, and strength. Other attributes can be crafted. Maximum mana can be good too, because your mines reserve flat mana. The amulet will get you maximum life, elemental resistance, gem level to HEXBLAST, global crit multiplier, and reduced mana cost of skills. Your rare ring will apply a curse on hit. If your profane proxy does flammability, get Hunter's elemental weakness. If profane proxy does elemental weakness, get Warlord's flammability. It should also get maximum life and resistances, especially chaos resistance. If you're all geared up, you need only crit multiplier and maximum life on jewels. Spell damage, resistances, attributes, and reservation efficiency are good too. You're looking for 2 chaos damage large cluster jewels with Unholy Grace, Wicked Pall, Unwaveringly Evil, and 1 touch of cruelty. Medium cluster jewel. Here seek Guerrilla Tactics and Surprise Sabotage. You should be able to fit 3 of these into the build, but we've skimmed the skill tree to achieve it. 1 reservation small cluster jewel that reduces the cost of Grace or Zealotry will be useful if not required. 1 life flask with bleed removal, quicksilver, quartz, jade, and stibnite flasks with suffixes that increase evasion, movement speed, regenerate life, and reduce curse effect on you are what you're looking for. Alternatively, get a diamond flask for quick chance. HEXBLAST deals chaos damage. If the enemy is hexed, it deals area damage and removes the hex. We'll need a hex on hit and hex as an aura from Profane Proxy. These hexes will both lower fire resistance, which affects chaos damage received from the HEXBLAST. Link it with high impact mines, minefield, charged mines, trap and mine damage, and void manipulation support gems. Skitterbots apply curse with Profane Proxy, rearm mines, and grant more mine damage. Zealotry grants more spell damage and critical strike chance. Use Grace for more and added evasion rating. Link these 3 with Enlighten to reserve less mana. You will need to have a lot of spare mana for your mines. Withering Step grants phasing, elusive, and instantly applies 11 withered debuffs with level 4 enhance on any enemy that gets close to you. Detonate mines. Detonates mines. Not much else to say here. Link both these spells to automation and enhance support as it increases cooldown recovery rate for automation, adds 2 extra withered stacks for Withering Step, and boosts detonation speed for Detonate Mines. Another automation setup consists only of automation and Steelskin. Steelskin removes bleeding and creates a barrier that absorbs some of the incoming hit damage. Bear Trap. The trapped enemy will take increased mine damage and be immobilized. Link it with combustion support so that the bear trap has a 50% chance to ignite, and if it does, it lowers enemies' fire resistance by 10%. Enduring Cry regenerates life and generates endurance charges. With Restless Ward and Swift Killer, these charges will last a very long time. Link it to Urgent Order support, it increases Enduring Cry Warcry speed. Shield Charge, use it to move faster in a straight line through flat terrain. Attack with Shield Charge faster by linking it to faster attacks. Support, it affects movement speed. You can also add momentum support for slightly more speed. You may want to replace momentum with blind support instead if you feel like it's not much of a difference. Despair. Don't use it on enemies. You don't have to lower chaos resistance, just fire resistance. We have included it here to apply Withered. but only if you have a matching balance of terror. Otherwise you will have to use Wither skill combined with spell totems. We plan to reduce only fire resistance, and because of the HEXBLAST's properties it will work on chaos damage. Flammability can be found on Warlord influenced rings, but you can also socket it in a skill gem form in Profane Proxy if your elemental weakness is from the ring suffix instead. Elemental weakness will lower fire resistance. Here we socketed it in Profane Proxy, but this curse can also be found as a hunter's suffix, in which case you will switch its place with flammability. Killing all the bandits is the best option. Soul of the Brine King is used for freeze immunity and to not get stunned too many times in a row, which can happen on account of your low maximum life and poor hit damage mitigation. Soul of Abereth reduces the ignite duration on you and makes you immune to burning ground. The character is not durable against damage over time, so it makes the most sense. The passive skill tree will provide you with mind damage, critical strike related bonuses, maximum life, spell suppression, a bit of reservation efficiency, maximum power and frenzy charges, whispers of doom notable, and 2 outer jewel sockets for cluster jewels. Your keystone is Ghost Dance to recover ES in some other way than recharging it. Allocate critical mastery for 25% additional critical strike multiplier against bosses. Mana mastery for increased mana reservation efficiency, and mind mastery so that each of them applies 2% increased damage taken to enemies near it. And that is all there is to say about HEXBLAST Miner. A very popular build, and for a good reason. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next one.